So, Apple II Plus keyboard. It's really dirty, oily, just nasty up underneath the keycaps. Of course, the entire thing was just nasty. This kind of brass, I'm assuming it's RF shield, is all bent up here. I don't think that's typical. This is known as the two-piece keyboard, and it's got the second board that is the interface to the Apple. I'm assuming this board can be removed because it's got these little tabs here that can be squoze in. Do I believe remove it? I'm assuming that slides up. Yeah, it does. I think it'll be a little safer to work on with the board separated. So it's got this long set of pins here that push down through this connector. It's got a bodge cap connected there. That's interesting. The switch here that either reset or control reset to start the machine. Copyright 1979. I think this is all well-known stuff out there. That's interesting. Is that meant to be like a STB190 for serial from the keyboard? The chip, of course, is labeled by Apple. I don't remember what the encoder is. I remember seeing the part number someplace. There's a couple of interesting footprints on there. This one's actually wired in. It's got to be a DB9 for a serial keyboard. And it's picking up pins off of the controller chip. Maybe power or switch of some kind there. Anyhow, what we're really after here is seeing if we can get into this keyboard a little better and cleaning it up, just because it is so filthy. Of course, can't get that one to release. I actually saw a better way of doing this. I think on a LGR, using a ballpoint pin to slide over and push those pins in. I don't have a ballpoint pin laying here, but at least now I can get it to sit somewhat flush and still get that aluminum bar across the back. I have not looked in detail really online about how to remove keycaps, etc. I'm going to assume it's like every other keyboard, and it is. So we'll go ahead and walk through and get the keycaps off. Maybe. Wow, you're being stubborn. Might be an easier way, honestly, than using the puller here, although I think the puller is the safer method. You can get a fairly square pull. Yeah, I expected that. There's the extra spring under the reset key just to make the tension a little stronger so you don't accidentally reset it. The key feels different than the return key. It's kind of a poor design choice, but that has been written about extensively in the stuff I have read. You're starting to see just how nasty this keyboard is up underneath these keys. I looked at this and like the caps had to come off. There was just no way to vacuum under there, and of course with the caps off I will take the time to wash them just no reason not to with them off. They're kind of oily. Everything on this machine's been kind of an oily, you know, almost like it was around machinery, maybe, you know, or stored in a garage where they did auto mechanic work or something. I just don't know. There's just kind of a oily filling kind of film on things. It was all the way down on the motherboard before I cleaned it. I will not be, of course, soaking the keyboard in water like I did the motherboard. I know people even scream about people cleaning that way. Getting the water out of these key plungers, to get water into it's nearly impossible. You know, if I ended up stripping this all the way down to the bare PCB, it would be a different story. The Radio Shack Model 1 keyboard we rebuilt, if you recall, I stripped that all the way down to the bare PCB, and basically went through all of the key switch mechanisms. Actually ordered some key switch mechanisms I found on eBay, and took a pretty broken Model 1 keyboard and actually got a really nice keyboard out of it. So that was nice. Oh, these, it's just filthy, just dust bunnies. And I haven't looked up under the space bar. I'm going to assume it's a pretty standard space bar mechanism. I need to actually look at it a bit. The nylon that holds the little metal crossbar under those can get old and brittle and become broken, and then it's a battle to get it to work well again. I need to be a little bit careful getting that off of there. Oh, this is just dirty, filthy. I know the little cover lifts off here. I know the little light bulb can be removed. It's really interesting to me they actually use a little incandescent light bulb there. I think I've seen something about somebody replacing it with an LED. Don't want to break the bulb. I'm sure it can be walked up out of there. Yeah, it's walking up out. Just set us up. But that reminds me of the little light bulbs when I was a computer tech working on mainframes. Very much little bulbs like that behind mainframe front panels. Oh, that's really interesting that the little bar is up underneath. It's not at all clear to me how that comes apart. I won't pry too hard here. Maybe this gets just removed and just pulls out. Yeah, that looks like that's what goes on. Okay, that makes sense. It's different from any mechanism I've ever seen on any other keyboard, but it makes perfect sense. The return spring for it. This drops into place, and then the bar drops in through the holes here and just catches in these three little catches to hold it in place. So actually not a bad little design, but again, you don't want to break these nylon connectors here, because putting that back together could be rather rough. This actually looks like it'll maybe peel off of here, or maybe not. It used to have sticky on the back of it. I'm going to assume it's just there for RF shielding. You know, this is an RFI model, Apple II. So they actually have started to think about radio frequency emissions. Well, that was coming loose fairly easily. I don't want to bend it. But I think if we can get it off of there, it can be washed independently. It's got that kind of greasy feel on the surface of it again. Again, like I said, I don't want to get water down into the switch mechanism on the keyboard. But I would like to clean this all as thoroughly as I can. There it is. That can be cleaned independently. Oh, that's just nasty. We're really down to just a keyboard matrix. There's nothing super special here. I could potentially tear this down. I'm not sure what the mechanism underneath looks like, but if these are, I almost suspect it's probably mechanical, not like a membrane keyboard underneath, although it's hard to say. Let me collect up all these keycaps. It's just nasty. Just nasty. These will get warm soapy water, soaked, toothbrushed, and all the things you've seen in 100 different videos. Oh, there's just dirt and nastiness just falling out of this all over. I think I am going to go ahead, just for the heck of it, and open this up just to get a look inside. I don't see a reason not to. I've taken apart much more seemingly complex keyboards and successfully got them back together. Again, maybe I should have researched this on the web, but what fun is that? You do know I like to just dive into these things and figure them out on the fly. Although I will admit, with the repair of that Apple II motherboard, that architecture book was invaluable in the end. I could have just randomly replaced chips and hoped it would work, but having those targeted list of this is video, etc., only fix the video issue. If I just walked through all the chips it said till I found the one that was bad. We touched on that a video or two back. I can feel the springs underneath kind of tensioning, pushing up. So it does look like this bar needs to come off as well. I want to mark the location where that bar goes back on. As I'm sure that would be unfun to get on backwards, although it might not make a difference. I don't know. I was interested to find that stiffening bar on the motherboard up underneath the edge connectors. I actually thought that was a mounting set of screws. And it's interesting here. I can, now these screws look like they might be longer. I want to be sure before I mix them. Now it looks like they are all the same length. They are self-tappers, so you want to be careful here not to take the threads out in the plastic. I've shown in other videos how to find the threads by turning backwards till you feel the screw drop into the previously cut threads in the plastic and tighten it in. This actually looks really clean inside. The gold's nice and clean, no, not tarnished. There's the pins for the light bulb. It's actually quite an interesting design. I've never seen a mechanical keyboard like that before. It is nice and clean inside. I don't really see any need to do anything inside of here besides put it back together. Tearing this down further would be a mistake. I don't know if I can get this in frame or not. Hopefully. You can see on the mechanism here, there's the little metal plate that pushes up against the printed circuit board. And then it looks like when it's flexed by pushing the key down, these two little popped up contacts make contact with a couple of little gold-plated circles on the board. This little metal bracket is snapped down over two plastic pins here, and this pin here's got a tooth in it that catches. You'd have to release that tooth to slide that metal plate off, and my guess is you'd break this pretty quickly trying to do that, and I really don't see a reason to do it. They're interesting inside, and probably can't get video of this. There's that little torsion U-shaped piece there. Again, I don't know if it's going to show up in camera. That provides the spring tension. It's an ingenious little mechanism. Not bad. You know, this board just really isn't dirty enough to justify needing to do any cleaning. I'm just kind of wiping it off, just if there's any loose. But there really isn't. I mean, I'm very happy with how clean that appears to be. Don't like that popping sound it just made. Let's see if we can get a couple screws started here. And just put it directly back together. Obviously missed the screw hole there. Let's see if I can get that lined up. There it is. If you saw there, I turned backwards until I felt the threads drop down into the plastic, the threads that were cut the first time the screw was put in place. The mic might be sensitive enough to pick up the little clicking noise that makes. What's not at all obvious here is which holes actually had screws in them, because I didn't bother to mark the holes that actually had screws, and there's a lot of holes there, so I'm going to have to look down through the holes to figure out which ones have screws underneath them. Again, I don't want to torque any one of these. I kind of want to bring it all down under tension together. Oh, do you see what I did wrong? I'm glad I spotted that before I went any further. It would have been an unhappy day to get all the screws back in and have to completely tear it down again. Another example here of why you protect the screws. This actually brings an interesting twist to this. Because that's got to get lined up and not have any of those poking through it. That's an interesting nuance to putting this back together. Nope, it shifted. So what's the best approach to this? I'm wondering a couple pieces of tape here to hold it against the board would make the most sense. The interesting thing is the punch holes and it don't quite line up, but that has to be the orientation it goes on, because it's got a smaller hole for there and a larger hole for there, and if I flipped it over, those wouldn't line up. Bit of an interesting little challenge. Use a couple little pieces of tape just to kind of tack it in place. It's interesting that, sorry, I've got this off camera. I'm trying to line up the punch holes, such as here. The one down here doesn't quite line up. They're close. I don't want this tape on too firmly. Just kind of enough. Just kind of enough to hold it flush. While I start a few screws. And can I get the tape to release? And I can. So that was a successful using tape as kind of a rig. This guy was on here this way. Oh, come on. The screwdriver's just magnetic enough to want to pluck the screw up out of there. Again, I'm not putting a lot of torque on these. And we'll come back and wander around the screws later. There's one there. here. I believe there's one right there. Interesting mechanism in there. I'm glad it was so clean inside, such that I don't have to do a whole bunch of cleaning and further tear down. There's one right there. There's the one I'm missing. Why does it look like I'm still short? Oh, there it is. I was going to say there's one more obvious screw hole. I didn't seem to have a screw for it. Again, no reason to be super torqued down. I don't know if I'd be better off doing this in a random pattern, or a little bit of what I'm trying to do is from the center out. Hopefully we didn't get metal on the wrong side of the paper somewhere. It's now causing issues. That screwdriver just doesn't want to engage well in those. Just an additional little bit of a turn just to make sure they're all tight. Yeah, my Apple I that I built, the clone that I built, the keyboard on it seems to have come out of a Franklin Ace Apple II clone, of all things, and I of course had to build an adapter for the connector for it because the pinout wasn't compatible. And of course, in exploring the Apple II here, I see that people make adapters just as I did to adapt an Apple II keyboard to the Apple I for people who are, what's a good word to use here, curious enough to try to put together an Apple I. Those all feel the same. I don't hear unusual noises or clicking like the paper's catching on something. I think we're good. I think that's put back together well enough. I will just do a gentle clean of this plastic soaked keycaps, and we will reassemble. So anyhow, I think I'll end this segment here, and I'll come back when we have something to put back together to the finished unit. I've cleaned the little brass sheet here that's set in behind the keys. It's got these bent edges, and I'm not convinced they're supposed to be bent. And I'm going to go ahead and flatten that out a bit and hope that I'm not making a mistake. Just kind of roll the end of this screwdriver over that. They just kind of flatten it back out. This was washed in just a mild detergent, lightly scrubbed. There's some corrosion and stuff. I'm sure I'm partly off camera here. There's some corrosion and stuff kind of on the back of this that I'm going to ignore. It's clean enough for my purposes. There's a little bit of tack left behind that I'll just leave in place. I don't know that it needs to be absolutely glued down. We'll just kind of start working through keycaps. We've got a little picture here. So Shift, ZXC, this should be V right here. Each keycap was individually cleaned. They were soaked in soapy water. Used a really soft toothbrush to kind of scrub them all, and then each one hand dried. And the letters are still very yellowed, but it is what it is. They could probably be retrobrighted. I'm not sure I see a reason to retrobrite them myself. Other people certainly would want to. See, QWE, escape QWE. The cursor keys we'll worry about towards the end. QWERTYU, this should be I. 1, 2, 3. That light film of oil that was all over the plastic and was sticky is completely gone here. The keycaps no longer feel sticky and nasty. This is 3, 4, 5, 6. This is one of the shifts. I don't know which one it is. It's funny, I can type, but when I sit here and think about it, I have no idea where keys are. UI. B is after the V. So yeah, these are obviously, looking at them still, very yellowed. Should be TYU. Oh God, don't break it. That would have sucked. One, of course, is here. 0 is going to be over here, standalone 67890. With 2 more and then reset. ZXCV. This is going to be, should be right here. I should have gotten a better photo of the keyboard layout. Normally I take a couple photos, but thought, well, I've got something laying around as a reference, and that was the best I could find without trying to print something out. I didn't realize the P key had an @ symbol on it. That's interesting. IOP should be here, if I can get it to line up and go on. There's the other shift. They might be identical. C. 2. I'm sure you've seen 1,000 videos of people putting keycaps back on, so I don't know if this will actually should be BN 5, whether this will hold anybody's attention long enough to actually watch through or not. Control ASD, RTY. In my eyes, this keyboard looks tremendously better compared to what I started with. I'd say some people would retrobrite. IOL should be right there. He is going to be there. Yep. Plus here. Get it centered on there. QRETY, so R is there. And it's screwed in, it'll be held down. Much better. It won't be kind of flapping around quite as much here as it is. Question mark slash should be here. Let's see, JKL X. Got the 0 on upside down. Not sure how I managed to do that, but I did. And M. J is a JKL. There is the 9, the 8. Each one of these were hand dried. QWER. Wow, I put the R in the wrong place. Including blowing the water out of the backside here. So the water was actually blown out and then allowed to dry for a little bit. Just so there wouldn't be a little bit of water get down into the mechanical pieces below. Reset is in this corner up here. Always fearful I've lost a keycap. I think every time I do this, ASD. Got the S on upside down. Can I get down around it to get it out of there? Yes. Invaluable little tool. Keycap puller. Got that on eBay. There was some really inexpensive ones. I went with a metal one, metal handle. Return is right here below reset. It's kind of an odd place for it. There is the O. Should be IOP. Repeat. I have no clue. I didn't even know it was a repeat key till I was cleaning the control. Or control, and it got control in the wrong place. I got it where escape goes. Rosie. Poor little girl. Poor little girl. No idea where repeat goes. Control G or bell. F, of course, there. The equal sign is up. Looks like repeat is actually next to return. I've got 2 shift keys. Oh, I cannot be short a key here. Shift, shift. Oh, I'm not. There's these 2 cursor keys. I've just got to figure out which way they go, and they go that way. Escape is up here. Hopefully this is on camera. The 2 shift keys look absolutely identical to me, so the size shouldn't matter. I've done a couple of things here wrong. First off is I forgot the spring underneath the reset key to increase the tension so it doesn't feel like the return key, so it's stiffer, and it certainly is. We have the return spring for the space bar, and I do believe it's going to go in this orientation. And then we're going to take the little metal bar that I didn't clean, so let me kind of wipe it down here. Oops, come on, fingers. And I can see that the bow in this should be this direction. Push it down, catch it under both sides. Didn't actually catch into the keys. It's capable of reaching in there and going into that little hole. I need to flip it over this way because of the bow in it. There. I was thinking there was 4 cursor keys, but I guess there's not, which is interesting. Meant to be a little bit like a teletype keypad, which it is. Getting him down in there might be really interesting. I probably should have done that earlier. There it is. No, maybe not. Of course, can't see down in there. It's completely done by feel. I'm very sorry I didn't put that in first. There it went. And that just clips down over the top there. I don't know if you remember what this looked like before, but that's markedly better. I'm just looking for any keys that are much higher than the others. It isn't completely down on the mechanism, and they all look fine. Don't remember this one being at an angle, but there's really no other way, and I don't see a leg that's been trimmed on one, so it must have been somewhat sideways like that. Somebody has significantly bent one of these pins working on this at some point, and it's been straightened out, but it's still rather crooked. That snaps down like that. All the pins are in and through the holes down here, and we're back together. Once it's bolted up into the case top, we'll have a much cleaner little keyboard, so very happy with that. Reassembly was pretty straightforward. Hopefully I haven't screwed anything up inside. I took that apart. Oops, dang, I keep doing that. Nothing. The keys seem to be, some of them seem to be rotated a little bit. I just wonder if something heavy has been stored on here and it's slightly bent the plastic posts. There's a bunch of them are rotated a couple of degrees, it looks like. I wouldn't be surprised this Apple II was not loved for a long time. Nice. Well, I think for the power supply, look at the keyboard. I think the next step is going to be put it back together. Let me Make sure it powers up and runs. Wow, even after cleaning all the dust bunnies out, I've got one that came right back. Where did that come from? I'm guessing that's bent up from people grabbing it there to pick it up, as I keep trying to do. Put it back together, see if it works. At some point I need to dig out a color monitor and test the color out. And really the last piece of this restoration will be the external plastics, which are pretty dirty, covered in stickers. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, to clean that up and not mar it up. Anyhow, I'll wrap this keyboard piece up here, and we'll talk soon.